The Night Shift by user NoTrains123. I was never what you would call a night owl, more of a recluse. You see, I find comfort in my solitude. That's why the night shift appealed to me so much. There's something quite liberating about it. Something tranquil. It's almost as if you're in a parallel universe where everything just seems different. It's nice. I work as a night guard at my local shopping centre. It's deep in the suburbs, so the only trouble I ever really come across is the occasional fox trying to get into the bins. I essentially just get paid to count the seconds down until 4 AM, when my shift ends. There isn't much more to it. After all, a shopping centre that's devoid of activity is a shopping centre that's devoid of concern, right? Perhaps the only discouraging aspect of it are the mannequins. They terrify me. But unfortunately, in a dimly lit shopping centre, they stick out like a sore thumb. There's nothing normal about some vacant imitation of a human. It feels like they look into you with a hollow glare which lingers in your mind before darting down the back of your spine. Their blank facade creates the impression of an unearthly human, a shadow of the people who occupy the centre during the day. I know they aren't real, but I never feel truly alone when I'm in the presence of a mannequin. Hell, I swear I've even seen one move once. Only in the corner of my eye though, but I just put that to the darkness playing tricks on my mind. I've been doing this job for about a year now, and part of what mitigates my paranoia around the mannequins is the drive home. I'll often find myself on the road just as the sun starts to break the seal of the horizon. It's quite a beautiful thing to see the world waking up, especially after you've finished your shift. It sort of indicates revitalization, rebirth, if you will. This customary moment of brief bliss is what alleviates any troubled thoughts I have. There's nothing like it. It's my daily detox. But something happened on my drive home this morning, something that has been etched in my mind like a tick. And the more I think about it, the more it infects me with fear. My night shift had just come to an end. I knew this because Oscar, the daytime security guard, had just arrived. I checked my watch. 3:56 AM. Sunrise was at 4:27 this morning, so I had just over 30 minutes of driving before I would be rid of any distressing thoughts. I began to walk towards my car, tossing the set of master keys to Oscar as we crossed paths, to which he responded with an enthusiastic thanks. He must have cycled to work, as my car stood alone in the desolated car park. It was situated directly underneath an overhanging street lamp, illuminated by its dull amber glow. Once I'd gotten in the car, I eagerly rammed my keys into the ignition and resuscitated it, avid for the replenishing journey home. I glanced at the shopping centre one last time to see Oscar smoking a cigarette by the main entrance, and I noticed that the fire exit was slightly ajar. We locked eyes for a moment. "The fire exit's open," I announced. He gestured his hand at me as if he was saying, "on it," and reluctantly turned towards the door, the amber of his cigarette playfully dancing with the motion of his hands. How hadn't I checked the fire exit? I decided to take the forest highway instead of my usual journey through the town. I'd never taken this route before, but it had just been reopened after a year-long closure, so I figured why not? It's quite a scenic route anyway. 50 miles of thick forest split in two by a freshly paved road. The sort of picturesque scene that you'd find on a postcard. The heart of the forest was dismal, trees that towered over the road. I checked my watch. 4:08 AM. Something didn't feel right, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. There was a distinct aura that made me feel like I was in the shopping centre. I don't know why. Maybe the trees reminded me of the mannequins, an inanimate unity that seemingly watches your every move. But I felt more like there was something about to happen. Whatever it was, it kept me vigilant, alert. The thought of a forest sunrise was far from my mind. It wasn't hot, but it was humid enough for a layer of mist to latch onto the tarmac and linger between the trees either side of me, almost as if it was waiting for something or someone. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't unnerved. My knuckles were white at the wheel. But it was only 19 minutes until sunrise, and turning back would have taken just as long as continuing onwards, so I carried on in heat of my thoughts. Maintaining a steady speed of 60 miles per hour, I diverted my attention to the broken yellow dashes on the road. It was quite satisfying, actually, to see vivid strikes of amber yellow come and go out of the beam of my headlights. As well as this, the road itself was incredibly smooth. This all comforted me, and for a moment I felt relieved, but unfortunately this was short-lived. The forest had sinister plans for me. As I approached a fork in the road, my headlights suddenly deserted the car and I was engulfed in darkness. I slammed the brakes. Believe me, the last thing I wanted to do was stop, but I just couldn't carry on in the dark. When my car came to a halt, I was greeted with my paranoia. Quick breaths took over me, my pupils dilated, I could feel my heart pumping blood through every vein in my body. Slowly but surely, I loosened my grip on the wheel, unhinged my seatbelt, and opened the car door. My feet met the tarmac and subsequently shifted to mist, leaving a marked circle of lucidity around them. The road felt hard yet fragile, like one big sheet of ice, and as my breath met the air, it turned into a haze of mist, which eventually settled with the fog that loitered around me. Stepping out of the car was no easy task. I was practically hugging it as I approached the hood and popped it open. I glanced at my watch. 4:14 a.m. The sky was violet, with a hint of the sun in the horizon that tinted it with a deep azure. I stared at the labyrinth of mechanics before me and was overcome with distress. Nothing made sense. Frantically trying to breathe some life into the bulbs, I flipped unfamiliar switches and shook an array of tubes, but to no avail. I'm a security guard, not a mechanic after all. I remember toying with the idea of walking the rest of the route, but who was I kidding? There was no way I was going to do that. It can't have been that long before I heard it. It came from the forest, the all too familiar sound of footsteps. They were moving at an irregular pace, snapping twigs and crunching leaves with every step. I cautiously veered my eyes towards the sound to see what appeared to be the silhouette of a human wandering within the dense forest. A human, someone who could help me, someone who could save me from this torturous experience. "Hey!" I called out unsuccessfully. It just kept ambling on. "Hey, help me!" I persisted, but it was apparent that it couldn't hear me, so I drastically walked towards it. From the vast open road, I stepped into the murky, confined forest. There was about 30 yards between us, which I was closing with a steady stride, despite the sea of trees that limited me from doing so. I kept on calling out again and again, but it would not stop walking away from me. It was clear that it just hadn't heard me yet. Edging closer, another sound accompanied the footsteps, a muffled voice. It was unintelligible, but it sounded familiar, like the voice of someone that I knew, yet I couldn't make out any words, let alone who it was. It got to the point where I was within 10 feet of it, close enough for me to call out to it and be heard. "Hello?" It immediately stopped. There was a subsequent flood of silence, which was as thick as the mist around us. It filled my ears with alarm, which unearthed the rhythmic pulse of my heart. The thing in front of me was lifeless. It was chalk white, from head to toe, with limbs that were freakishly slender, fork-like fingers hanging off the ends of its arms. With a stiff motion, it rotated its head to reveal a face, or what was left of one. It had no mouth, no nose, no ears, no eyes. Instead, there was just a smooth facade of a head, a ghost of a face. There was a moment where it was just looking at me, like a lion observing its prey. Somehow, despite the lack of eyes, I could feel its empty glare latching onto me. It was both immobilizing and hypnotic. I was transfixed. The glare soon became a beam, as 2 openings of light appeared where its eyes should have been. They were like headlights, to which I was just a deer in them. The harsh light burrowed into my skull and made its way through my spine. It was less painful than it was stimulating, but I was overcome by it all as it began to spread to every pore in my body. I could see the thing was right in front of me. It was expressionless, but I could also see it tunneling through me. It settled in my chest, an erratic form of energy that felt like a ball of lead. Beyond the beam of light that coated my vision, I could see the thing's face beginning to shift and stir. It was morphing. 2 holes appeared in the center of its head, followed by a pointed mound which shaped them into nostrils. A nose. Then, like a slash of an open wound, a slither of red materialized below it. A pair of ruby lips. The outline of ears started to emerge from the sides of its head. They grew like tumors, both deformed and unpredictable. What was in front of me was the culmination of a face. It looked hauntingly familiar, but the light shone too bright for me to infer anything. I must have been debilitated in its trance for about 15 minutes. As the sun finally surfaced from its slumber, this could only mean one thing. 4:27 a.m. Sunlight seeped through the trees like honey, decorating the mist and painting the trunks with a pastel amber color. It eventually reached us, casting a layer of illumination onto the thing's face, subsequently shattering the beam of light which had me in its tenacious trance. All that was left was an outline of its ray, a remnant which glimmered in the morning sun. In due course, my lucidity returned to me. The sunlight had revealed a pair of hazel green eyes and a mop of greasy black hair that was perched on top of its head. Everything became so clear, so obvious. The face that I had just watched move into existence was mine. I gravely searched for a hint of delusion, but instead was met with the daunting truth. It was me. The thing opened its mouth. Hello, it proclaimed, with a voice that was an echo of my own. It resonated in my ears, almost taunting me, the discomfort of unwanted familiarity. The moment of revelation had disentombed my adrenaline. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran, leaping in bounds over the terrain of the forest floor. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I emerged from the forest with the mobility of a newborn fawn, my legs staggering in a frantic attempt to escape what I had just encountered. It didn't take long to reach my car, but when I got there, I instinctively closed the bonnet and scrambled into the seat. The car was still turned on, and, lo and behold, the headlights glistened onto the irradiated tarmac. There was no time to muse on this. I hit the gas and sped off, but my curiosity besieged me to peer at the thing as I drove past it. It hadn't moved. It just followed me with a hollow glare, staring at me with my own eyes, wearing my face like a mask. This brings me to the present moment. I've been glued to my bed all day, as paralyzed as I was in the forest, watching morning descend to evening. I can't think straight. I just keep on seeing its face, my face. I'm haunted by my own visage. The night shift is slowly approaching, and I found myself staring into the face of uncertainty. All I know is that it's out there. I'm out there, and I don't know what I'm going to do.